let me do that. Oh. Nope, I have to share before I can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Oops. Welcome, everybody. This is the last in our series of webinars on open pedagogy, and today we're having an unconference, so this will be starring all of you. This has been a schedule of webinars we've been going through for the last month and a half or so, starting with an introduction to open pedagogy, going through several examples of open pedagogy from around the world, and today having a discussion about your questions or issues that have not come up so far. So we want to thank you all for joining us, those of you that have been in on a lot of these webinars, and also remind you that with that link, you can find recordings to any of the webinars that you missed. A quick introduction to Sunni. Sunni is the largest institution of public higher education, or system of public higher education in the country. We have 64 campuses, about 450,000 full-time equivalent students. We cover the entire state, everything from community colleges through four-year and professional research institutions. And this webinar series is being brought to you by the Faculty Advisory Council on Teaching and Technology. We represent the entire state, all of the schools in the system, to look at how teaching and technology can be improved and to bring in new ideas like open pedagogy. So we're part of a task force on open education initiatives, and we've been focusing on open pedagogy this year and next year. And we're really pleased to be doing this in collaboration with the Open Education Consortium. Susan?
And yes, we are excited to partner with you guys to host this webinar series, and really excited about today, but I'll get back to that in just a minute. Just a quick little bit about Open Education Consortium. We are a global nonprofit, and our focus is open education. We have approximately 240 members, literally global, from around the world. And some of the major activities that we focus on are Open Education Week, which many of you may have participated in, Open Education Awards, which is actually going on right now. And if you know someone that should be nominated, I encourage you to go to the website and check it out. And then, of course, the OE Global Conference coming up later this year in Milan in November. And again, I encourage you to check that out. Today is the last day to submit proposals if you would like to come tell us what you're doing in open education. Shall I say a little bit about today? We had a change in direction. We were actually hearing from some of you guys about things that you were doing. And some of our panelists couldn't show up for today, so we decided to open the floor to our attendees today. There was a spreadsheet that you could sign up on and list your questions, your event, what you wanted to tell us about, or questions you may have about open pedagogy. And I can't see the list, so I can't compare, who may have signed up and who hasn't. But what we would like to do is hear from you and see who wants to be promoted as speaker today to tell us what you're doing in open pedagogy, or maybe propose your question that we could help answer for you.
So, Susan, I think what I'll do, since there's only 9 people in there,
okay.
I'm just going to promote you all to be panelists, and you could choose to talk or not, but I think that would be the easiest, quickest way to do it.
Sounds wonderful.
I'm doing it now for all of you. We're going to hear a little dings as we do it.
And whether or not you go video is up to you. You're definitely not required to do that to participate today. So we would love to hear, once everybody loads, we would love to hear from you. Maybe where you are and what you're doing. And if you do have a question for us, we would love for you to just go ahead and propose it. Thanks to you guys that are doing video. We love to see who our audience is.
So Susan, can you repeat the question? I apologize for turning up late. I had a meeting right up against this one.
No question, but I don't mind repeating. We are opening the webinar today to everyone that's attending. And what we want to do is hear from you. What are you doing with open pedagogy? Benchmarks, successes, questions you may have about open pedagogy. This is really an opportunity for you guys to tell us what you're doing or maybe ask your questions.
Hi, my name is Trudy Jacobson. I'm at the University at Albany, and I did something a little bit different in my information literacy course this past semester. It was a fully online course. My area of research has to do with meta-literacy, which is sort of collaborative and individual engagement in online environments. Sort of a metacognitive process as a part of that. And I partnered with a Wiki education program, and I don't know if anybody else here has worked with them, but so my students were sort of learning about information literacy, meta-literacy, sort of their roles as information producer and consumer while they were creating, or in many cases, adding to Wikipedia entries. I found it to be extremely exciting. It all seemed to work really well together. Student reflections seemed to be good too. Just something that I was trying for the first time. And I wonder if anybody else on the call has worked with Wiki education.
Hi, Trudy. My name's Judy Littlejohn. I'm at Sunni Genesee Community College in Batavia, New York. It's kind of near Buffalo.
Hi, Judy.
Hi. And I tried that last year. I was eating on my lunch, so I had my camera off. But I'm curious, what level students were you working with?
I tend to get mostly seniors in my course.
So I just asked because I tried it last year with a fully asynchronous online course, and I have first-time students, so they're freshmen, some are still in high school, and we really struggled with the Wiki EDU, and I think it was a combination of their varying levels of writing skills, and the fact that it was one of the times when I really wish the students could come to campus and be in a lab with me, and I could walk them through with it. Because I think they were daunted by contributing to Wikipedia, first of all, and finding so they're focused on finding the right sources. And then there was the whole technical component, and that really, it was the two things combined. It just was an overload for some of the students. Now, I did have some who were very successful, but I did not sign up to do that again. So I think, plus I teach world history, and it's, so I had them focusing like on World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, and letting them pick whatever topic they wanted in those areas. So it was pretty wide open, but I still think if we had been a little bit more focused, that could have helped too, because then they could have worked together to find sources. But I think it was pretty rough for just for I think it was the group of students that I had.
And I think having seniors really helped, although most of mine had never taken a fully online course before, so some were sort of struggling in that regard. A few really wanted to have, one anyway, wanted nothing to do with Wikipedia, although she was pretty successful. Like you, I found problems with the writing and such, and was hoping that the editorial, people editing in Wikipedia might make some changes. I did some myself. But I think because it fit in so beautifully with the information literacy, like scholarship as a conversation and that type of thing, and the meta literacy being a real contributor in open platforms, I think that helped. But I can see it would be really tough with first-year students.
I found the Wiki EDU support people were excellent, and they loved to work with the students. But the only catch with that was they were all in California, so we had the time zone issues. But I think they were wonderful people to work with, and if I could find another group of students who I think it would be suitable for, I would try it again, but not with the courses that I'm currently teaching.
Yeah, the support, and they also had all those resources available in the platform and everything. They really do sort of make it easy as possible.
So now I have that same class now, and I changed it up a little bit this year because I did want to focus on, their digital literacy. And so the project we're doing is, I kind of brainstormed about 64 different research topics and put them all in a Google sheet, and they had to sign up for their topic. And I gave them like 3 different lists of sites they could go to for primary sources. So their research paper was in 5 steps. So the first step, they had to sign up for their topic and select their primary source so that we knew, because they think the primary source is the first one they use. So they all say, my primary source is the textbook. And you're like, no, it's not. But so we kind of get them through that. And then the next step, they had to choose 2 secondary sources from one of the college library databases. And so the quality, then their third step, they choose the 2 sources and say why they chose them and where they're going to use them. Then they do an outline, then a rough draft, then their final draft. And the quality of the papers, this right now is far surpassing any of their previous ones. So I think I might try that again in the fall. The problem I'm having though, so what I want to publish for them is their topic, their primary source, and their 2 secondary sources. So we could have in their thesis statement. So we can have like a database of vetted research resources for future students. And so I have a site, like a WordPress site, but I don't know how to put all that stuff on there. And I'm trying to find, like, looking at different WordPress searchable database plugins and how to get that in. And I have to do it really fast because I need to get it out there so they can see it. And I want to survey them on what they think and what they would like to change or what they would do differently before they're gone. So if anybody has any ideas about how to do something like that, I'm open. I'm all ears. But I try something every year. And I really like this. If I can get this publishing part of it pinned down, I would definitely keep going in this direction. So.
Judith, can I ask what you said that last year didn't work so well with the Wiki EDU? What was it exactly that it was the writing abilities of your students? Was that the main obstacle?
Yeah, so it was that. Some were just intimidated by it. Some it's we get a lot of first generation students. This is their first year. They haven't even had English 101 yet, and we're trying to get them to write history research papers. So, and then on the other side of the coin, we have, people getting a master's in history who needed to just come back and pick up a world that they never took. So I've got students all over the spectrum and all different generations too, because we do have some high school students enrolled in the college classes. And I think it was just it was really tough to get them focused down into to choose a topic. So Wikipedia has some pages that are like these resources that they sort of brand and no one can edit them. And those tend to be the ones, we were looking at World War I, World War II, and the Cold War. And for World War I and II, you can't edit those pages. They're like locked up. And so you have to find something, a something tangential for the students to work on, and they just really struggled with the combination of finding what it is they wanted to write on, writing well enough to let it stay and let it be posted for more than a couple hours before somebody corrects it on them. And then there's the technology, the interface in the Wiki EDU was kind of tough for the students. There's a lot of little coding, all these little tags you have to put on everything, and they struggled with that quite a bit. It's confusing, and I was confused too. I went through all the training. I went to all their webinars. They do monthly webinars for the faculty, which are great. Often I was the only person there, so I had like the Wiki EDU people and me. So I love that. They would do anything you needed them to do, but it was still really tough to get the students to understand like their page and versus the page that they're editing. And there's just so many components to it that we really struggled.
Because I was just thinking, I did a project a few years ago where I was assigned to teach a class sort of at the last minute. It was a third junior level math class. I'm a math professor. Mm-hmm. And the students, I didn't like the textbook that had been chosen. So I had a wiki, and I would sort of give material in class, and there would be a pair of students for every week of class assigned to write a wiki page about that week's material. But it was an internal wiki. It looked like Wikipedia. I used the Wikimedia Media Wiki engine, which I just spun up on my own server, which is pretty easy to do. And then, so it wasn't completely public, but at least it was co-authored any of the collaborative and semi-public aspects of open pedagogy. I wonder if your students had clone some of the web pages from the actual Wikipedia on World War I and World War II in an internal wiki that you guys had, that they could do the editing there, and they would know it would not be live, it wouldn't be public, but it would be at least that experience. Does Wiki EDU offer something like that?
They do. They give the students do write in a space that is not public, and they can have it looked over before they publish it. So, and one really nice thing too is even if they do publish and then somebody goes in and deletes what they wrote, you can look through the history and see everything that the students did. Yeah. And so you can still grade it even if it's gone, and I like that. And they can still go back and see, and show somebody that this is what they had done. A couple of the students, their stuff really stayed, and that was cool, and they were proud of what they did. But I would say it was in thirds. Like the top third of the students were really successful. The middle third kind of struggled but got the job done, and the bottom third just checked out. So, which I think, I don't know, that kind of happens in online classes anyway, but I'm just seeing a lot more, the papers right now are a lot stronger than they were with that project. So. Oh, there's a lot of comments in the chat.
Yeah, there was one I want to go back to. Western Connecticut, is that correct? Did I get that right? Doesn't have a mic in the room, so they proposed their question in the chat. They are interested in what folks are doing in terms of storing and sharing faculty created content on campuses. Anyone?
Well, on my campus, we got a Pressbooks instance, and we're using Pressbooks to host and develop those things. It's quite a nice tool. I'm in STEM, and its handling of formulas and things is not quite as nice as other tools I have used, but it seems to be becoming kind of a de facto standard in the OER world, so that's a pretty good option.
Yeah, I'm hearing of Pressbooks positively more and more.
Yeah, and I'm here at Albany, we have our Scholars Archive. I was just going to see what platform it's on.
I saw Mary Jo Orzak was initially here, but now she left. But I know that at SUNY Brockport, they have a digital commons that I know for faculty and students to publish work. I'd put a link into it. And I see there's another one, yeah, that Jean put on there. WordPress instance.
Yeah,
Right.
we're BPress.
So there's another question that was posted to the chat. Open Teaching Week sounds fantastic. Are students involved in this as well? And this was directed to Jean.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have not had students, actually, we've not had students directly involved in terms of hosting them to talk about their experience, but we actually have had students attend some of the groups, and they found it, or the sort of workshop or events, and they found it on their own. We're not sure how they stumbled into it, but it was great to have them there. And we do encourage, we actually often prompt our faculty with questions for some of these programs so that they'll have thought about what they want to talk about. And one of the things that we do ask them to talk about is student response to OER and open pedagogy in their classes. So we definitely want their voices heard, and you're sparking me to think about how we might actually have some student sessions where they get to share more with the faculty.
Mary Lou or Chris, you can remind me, but one of our webinars that I found really interesting was the webinar we had a few weeks ago. Was it about food or wine? That one of your teachers, I believe, created a site and involved her students. To me, that was a great example of involving students directly in the teaching. Do you remember which webinar that was?
Were you thinking of the fashion history timeline?
Maybe it was fashion history. I could have sworn it was food because I remember wine.
Yes, no, that webinar is actually wonderful. It's one of the ones that is archived on the site if you wanted to see it. She has a whole system, and she showed it during the webinar, of assigning students a particular time period or a particular style of dress or something like that. They would write the articles. The faculty members, she has colleagues who are also involved in this. The faculty members then do the final edit, and those that are approved get promoted up to the website, so they actually become part of the timeline. And now they have, which includes the students, over 450 credited authors for the timeline. And this timeline has been receiving about 2,000 hits a day, she said, which includes a pretty broad reach outside of FIT where it was created. And she continues to use this as an assignment in her classes. And as I said, some of her colleagues are using this, and she's interested in getting people from outside FIT to also contribute to it. So it's become quite a resource, and it is completely built on open pedagogy principles.
Yeah, I was just looking back over the recorded webinars, and I think that one was it. I mean, some of the pictures and all were just fantastic, but to look at some of the student work was just amazing. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't seen the recorded webinar, to go back and check that one out. She had some great examples of student involvement.
Yeah, I was looking at hers today to see, as I said, I'm trying to find a way to put a searchable database on a WordPress site. So I was trying, I remember during that webinar, she listed a whole bunch of different tools that she used. So hers is just amazing. But and we don't have anything like that here at Genesee Community College at all. But a fellow instructional designer in Sunni, Ed Beck at Oneonta, was applied for a grant through Sunni, and he asked if anybody else wanted to jump on it, and so I did. And he's trying to get a grant for the reclaimed hosting sites and training, so that people throughout Sunni can post their student projects. So we're still waiting to hear if that happened, if he got the grant or not. And if he did, I think he's planning on hosting some training over the summer so we can use that a lot in the fall. So my fingers are crossed. That would be nice. Right now I put, the other projects the students did are just on off of my own blog, or on like I have a student account. So here at GCC, the students all have Gmail, but the faculty and staff don't. But so I got a student account, so I made my student Google site and can put stuff there. But you know, it's not ideal, and they're never gonna find it if they don't have the URL. So I want it to be findable for them.
I'm just looking at the chat and I'm noticing the comment from Jean about Open Teaching Week. Jean, do you want to say more about that, about how you organized it? And you said you had lightning rounds. Who comes to them, and how do you manage it?
Sure. We actually have pretty extensive programming that week. So I co-lead all of our sort of open educational resources and Zero textbook coursework with Gina Cherry, who's the director of our Center for Excellence in Teaching, Learning, and Scholarship. And we wanted a way to celebrate and share faculty work. So we created Open Teaching Week. And I did put a link into the chat so folks can go and look at the schedule that we put together. And we do a number of things. One is that we invite faculty to open their classrooms. So faculty can sign up to go observe another person teaching, and they can do that both online for online courses as well as in-person courses. So that's one aspect of it. And then the other is several events during the week where we invite faculty to share. So we have an Open Pedagogy series, and then we also have an OER series so folks can share what they're doing in both of those areas. And we also have an online class expo as well, where we set up probably 5 or 6 big monitors where faculty can show their online course and talk to folks about what they're doing with it. So it's part of our effort to create a culture of open at BMCC. And that goes towards sustainability. We think if we can shift that culture for folks to have open be the first thing they think about doing with their class, that we'll have a better chance of sustaining both the OER ZTC activities that we're doing.
What time of year do you do this, Jean? I would love to know more about it, and to know when you're doing it. I'd love to help you promote it.
Sure. So we do that generally at the end of March, beginning of April.
Okay.
Part of it depends on when our spring break falls. Our spring break in CUNY is tagged to the city schools as well as the particular religious holidays at that time. So it moves. So this is the second year we've done it. So the first year was the last week in March, and then this year it ended up being the first week in April. But it's generally around that time.
Okay. I'll make a note and look for you next year. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Great. Thanks.
So we had a question come in. How do people navigate student privacy? And are students allowed to opt out of open assignments? And has there been any pushback? This is a great question. I think we discussed this in one of our previous webinars, but it does keep coming up, and it is important to all of us.
We absolutely allow opt-out, and actually it's opt-out without a reason. A student doesn't have to say why they want to opt out. They can just say, I would like to opt out, and they work with the faculty member for an alternative. So absolutely, students are never required to do open assignments.
So with the projects I've done, it's similar to that. I haven't had any students who wanted to opt out, but I only put in like their first name and then last initial. So we're not putting that much information in to begin with. So, and then with the Wikipedia thing, that was another part, they had to create their Wikipedia account. And so I told them they could make their own name, but they had to just tell me who they were. So if people didn't want their real name on Wikipedia, they could say, like green frog at, whatever they used, as long as I knew who they were for grading, and that was fine. So no, we haven't had any pushback either. I think there aren't a whole lot of projects on campus right now, but I'm real curious, of course, I'm on the Open Pedagogy working group, so I'm with whatever policies and procedures we come up with next year that we could have ready, so that if people do, if this does take off on our campus, we can already have some recommendations in place for policies like that. It's been pretty low key so far. I know other faculty members, we have a lot of photography going on online. Our photography instructor likes to do that, and I think he does a similar thing where it's like first name, last initial, or some type of pseudonym that he can recognize for grading.
And if
follow up. So yeah, I put the whole kit and caboodle. Everything's in my 20-page syllabus, and so they know. Because I want them to know right up front, like, this is what we're doing. This is called Open Pedagogy, and this is what it means. This is what you do that will be published will be X, Y, and Z, so that they know before even the first assignment starts, like exactly what we're doing. So and they seem fine with it. I put it in the syllabus quiz. They all passed the quiz, so they must understand, right?
Just to follow up to Judith, I believe this was really the response from the other instructors that we talked to in an earlier webinar, is that they had very little pushback. In fact, the students were actually interested in participating and learning more about open pedagogy versus opting out. I think they said they had very, very few that opted out.
I think they like, making this assignment that they're sort of accountable for, and that they can show somebody that they made. I tell them, you can point to this and say, this is a thing I did, and you can be proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, the right encouragement and, framing it that way, I think they are proud to be able to show what they did. So. Mm-hmm. Another thing I used to do was I tried to get peer review projects going, and we use Blackboard as our learning management system, and the peer review tool in Blackboard is horrible. So I do it in Google. So again, I use Google for a lot of things, and so I assign the students like random 4-digit numbers, so they just put their number on all their assignments, and I'm number 9999, so they always know that that's me. And we put everything's out there, all their essays, all the feedback, all the way everybody rated everybody else, and then I score every single one and give them all feedback, and they love that. They love to be able to go through back through the spreadsheets and see what all the comments were on all the other students, and kind of compare, so they can see like who's getting the higher score and what are their comments compared to the lower scores. And so those projects are awesome. It's labor intensive though. That was the only problem. But I just love when everything's out there like that. The reaction from the student is pretty good. They're really open to reading all that stuff, far more than when they just write an essay and hand it to me, and that's the end of it.
All right. Well, it looks like we're coming up, or we've passed our half-hour mark. I wonder if there are any other questions or comments that we want to discuss before we close it out. All right. Well, we want to encourage you again to go back and review any of the webinars that you missed by looking at the recordings, and to please stay in touch. As I mentioned, Sunni will be working on this at least for another year. I know OEC works on this all the time, so any of us will be happy to hear from you suggestions about maybe future webinars or other kinds of discussion formats that you'd like to have. We want to thank you for your participation. This was a really interesting discussion with a lot of great ideas. And I don't know, does Susan or Chris, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just thanks everybody for coming and being willing to contribute to this. And we will have a symposium on open pedagogy and adaptive learning. There are two task groups that are going right now on in Sunni, and we're going to have a joint symposium with those two groups. We're still trying to put together the agenda, but that'll be November 1st, I believe. It's a Friday, the first Friday of November. So stay tuned to that. Hope to see some of you there for that.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks too for everybody coming today and contributing. To me, I think just opening the conversation is important at this stage, because we're all doing so many great things. We don't take the time to stop and share what we're doing, and so others can replicate instead of create from the very beginning. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Great, thanks.